All right, let's talk about something I know drives automation testers crazy. You build a script, it works perfectly, and then, poof, it breaks. If that sounds familiar, you were in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to master XPath and Selenium and build some seriously resilient tests.
So, let's start with the big one, the question that I know keeps people up at night. You write this beautiful script, it runs like a dream, and then a week later it's totally broken. You didn't touch it, so what on earth happened?
Well, the answer, and this happens more often than not, is actually pretty simple. It's probably not your test logic. It's your locators, the very way your script is trying to find that button or that text field. That is almost always the weakest link in the whole chain.
Okay, so let's dig into why this is such a common problem. You might be using an element's ID or its class name, and that works great for a while. But then a developer makes what seems like a tiny change to the front end. They update an ID, they tweak a class name for a new design, and bam! Suddenly, your script is flying blind. It's just too brittle.
This is where our hero, XPath, enters the picture. Now, XPath stands for XML Path Language, and it's just this incredibly powerful way to navigate the structure of a web page. I want you to think of it less like a specific street address and more like a set of GPS coordinates that can find an element no matter how the neighborhood around it changes.
So, why do I call it a secret weapon? Well, it's because unlike those simpler locators that are stuck looking at just one or two specific attributes, XPath can search absolutely anywhere in the document structure. It gives you this incredible, almost unfair amount of flexibility.
And that right there is the real power of XPath. When an ID is missing, or the class names are a total mess, or maybe the element you need is just buried deep inside the page's structure, what we call the DOM. XPath can just cut right through all that noise and find exactly what you're looking for. It is your absolute go-to for those really tricky situations.
Now, before you just start writing XPath for everything, you gotta know there are two fundamental ways to do it. And picking the right one, honestly, is probably the single most important decision you're gonna make for the long-term health of your scripts. The choice becomes really clear when you think about it like giving directions to a friend. Absolute XPath over on the left is like telling them how to get to your house starting from the country's capital city. It's super long, super complex, and if a single road is closed, the whole thing falls apart. But relative XPath on the right, that's like saying, find the big clock tower and my house is 2 doors down. It's direct, it's easy to read, and it's way more reliable. It really just boils down to this. Seriously, if you take only one thing away from this whole explainer, make it this. Always prefer relative XPath. It is the single biggest thing you can do to prevent headaches down the road, I promise.
Okay, so we get it. We know why we're using relative XPath. So now, let's get practical and actually build out our toolkit. I'm going to walk you through the most common, most powerful patterns that you'll find yourself using every single day.
First up, this is your bread and butter, finding an element by one of its attributes. The syntax is super simple, just 2 slashes, the tag name, like input, and then inside square brackets, you just name the attribute and its value. This is perfect for grabbing an input field by its unique name or ID.
But what if an element doesn't have a good, unique attribute to grab onto? No problem at all. You can find it by the actual text it displays on the screen for the user. This is so useful for locating things like a submit button or a click here link.
All right, now for a really powerful one. Sometimes attributes are dynamic, right? An ID might change from user 123 to user 456 every time the page loads. The contains function is a game changer here. It lets you find an element as long as its attribute contains a predictable piece of text, like user. This thing is an absolute lifesaver.
So what happens if just one condition isn't quite enough to uniquely find what you're looking for? Well, you can combine them. You can look for an input that has a type of text and also has a name of username. This lets you build these incredibly specific, super accurate locators that won't accidentally grab the wrong thing.
Okay, enough theory. Let's actually see how this all comes together in a real-world scenario. Seeing these patterns in action is really what makes it all click. Check this out.
See how this all comes together to automate a simple login form? In step 1, we're using that basic by attribute pattern to find the username field by its ID. Easy enough. But for the password in step 2, we're using our contains function, pretending maybe its ID is dynamic. Then for step 3, we just grab the button using the visible text login. It's 3 different patterns working together for one clean, robust automation flow.
So, we've covered the why and the how. Let's just wrap everything up by boiling it all down into a few simple, powerful rules that will make sure your automation scripts are as rock solid as possible.
All right, to make sure your scripts stay strong, just commit these 4 rules to memory. 1. Always use relative XPath. 2. Get comfortable with contains for anything dynamic. It's your best friend. 3. Combine your conditions with and or for pinpoint accuracy. And 4, and this is a big one, your browser's developer tools are your playground. Use them to inspect elements and test your XPath expressions before they ever even touch your code.
And there you have it. We've just unlocked a much more powerful, much more reliable way to automate things on the web. You're no longer at the mercy of brittle, fragile locators. So the only real question left is, with this new toolkit in your hands, what are you going to build? That's all for this explainer. Now go put it to work.